Mighty heroes battle for the right to rule the galaxy. The vast armies of the Emperor of Mankind conquer the stars in the Great Crusade. The myriad alien races are to be smashed by his elite warriors and wiped from the face of history. The dawn of a new age of supremacy for humanity beckons. Gleaming citadels of marble and gold celebrate the many victories of the Emperor, as system after system is brought back under his control. Triumphs are raised on a million worlds to record the epic deeds of his most powerful champions. First and foremost amongst these are the Primarchs, superhuman beings who have led the Space Marine legions in campaign after campaign. They are unstoppable and magnificent, the pinnacle of the Emperor's genetic experimentation, while the Space Marines themselves are the mightiest human warriors the galaxy has ever known, each capable of beating 100 normal men or more in combat. Many are the tales told of these legendary beings, from the halls of the Imperial Palace on Terra to the outermost reaches of Ultima Segmentum. Their deeds are known to be shaping the very future of the galaxy, but can such souls remain free of doubt and corruption forever, or will the temptation of greater power prove too much for even the most loyal sons of the Emperor? The seeds of heresy have already been sown, and the start of the greatest war in the history of mankind is but a few years away. Hello, and welcome back to the Wisdom of Warhammer channel. And in today's video, I'll be continuing my series on the origins of the Emperor. If you haven't seen my first part, I suggest you see that first, and then come back to this one. In this part, I will be talking about his time during the Great Crusade, and then his time during the Horus Heresy and Siege of Terra. Like in my previous videos, I do not own the artwork in the video, and all things Warhammer are owned by Games Workshop and Black Library. I hope you guys enjoy the video, and without further ado, let's get the video started, shall we? At the end of the last video, I talked about how he and the newly created Imperium was about to begin its Great Crusade, and how the Emperor sensed that his sons were not dead. The first conquest in the Great Crusade was the conquest of the Sol System, which I mentioned a little bit at the end of part 1 of the Emperor's origins. The majority of the time, he was dealing with the religious tech cults of the Mechanicus on the red planet Mars. He realized the power of the tech cults and how the manufactorums of the Mechanicus could produce weapons, vehicles, and armor for his legions of warriors who gave themselves to the Imperium to reunify humanity under a single banner. At first, the Mechanicus refused the offer from the Emperor, but he threatened to unleash his Space Marines upon them, but realized that he needed to be diplomatic. Instead, he offered them the chance to study new technology from Terra and Luna. He also would allow them to join his fleets in finding new and more powerful tech from before the Age of Strife. The priests were intrigued and accepted his offer, and one issue that would happen as the crusade went on was that some of the tech priests saw the Emperor as the Omnissiah, which is the living embodiment of the machine god in the material realm. The Emperor tolerated this because he was able to use the factories of Mars to produce even more equipment for the Imperial fleets, which allowed them to conquer worlds and destroy anything that was a threat to his dream. While he dealt with the tech cults of Mars, the Space Marine legions were on other planets in the Solar System, killing either Xenos warlords, tyrants, or human abominations. Some of these planets that had Xenos overlords that enslaved the people were liberated from the Xenos overlords. Then, when the Solar System was conquered, the shipyards of Terra, Mars, and Jupiter started creating void ships for the Emperor, and when they were ready, he sent out massive expeditionary fleets consisting of hundreds and/or thousands of void ships of different sizes. These fleets served as scouts for the Great Crusade, but they did have some detachments of the Space Marines who assisted in the campaigns. The main goal was to find the lost planets of humanity and bring them into the Imperium, either through force or diplomacy, but it was mostly through force in the earlier decades of the Crusade. The Emperor was among these fleets, but he obviously had the most advanced technology the Imperium could offer, including his flagship called the Bucephalus, which held a garrison of custodies and was so big it had its own gravity gradient. When the Emperor encountered humans, he was either a conqueror who destroyed anything in his path, or he was the diplomat who offered salvation to worlds who were in darkness. A few years after the Imperium spread throughout the stars, the Emperor arrived at a planet called Chthoniya. This planet was a mining world that became barren and was now filled with gangers that warred with each other in the Undercities, and the Emperor heard of a being of immense skill and power. Immediately, the Emperor went to find this being, and when he found this man, he saw that it was one of his sons, and he was happy that he found one. His name was Horus Lupercal, a warlord who conquered the petty gangs of his homeworld through slaughter and brutality. When the Emperor and Horus talked, his father told him about the Great Crusade, the Imperium, and of course, his brothers. Horus was excited and bent the knee to his father. When Horus and the Emperor returned to the Imperium, the Emperor gave his first found son his legion, the Lunar Wolves, and he taught his sons the ways of war and conquest as they spent years alongside each other. When Horus met his legion, he was proud to see his legion, and he learned from them and cared for them. But there was a mysterious eye watching in the ranks of legionnaires. As the Emperor and Horus went from system to system, reuniting lost worlds of humanity into the Imperium and killing Xenos empires, it formed a strong bond that could never break. As Lupercal grew in power, so did his legion, and they became the best legion at the time, and the Emperor was proud to see that. Then the Emperor heard of another rumor of one of his long-lost sons on a frozen world called Fenris, and he went to visit this planet and he found his son. His name was Leman of the Rust tribe. Leman conquered all of Fenris under one banner, just like Horus had done on his planet, and the Emperor asked his son to join his side, but he had to beat him in 3 contests. He lost the first 2 and was impatient, so he knocked Leman out, and when he woke up, Leman laughed and kneeled before his father. Horus became jealous when he met Leman because he had built his bond with the Emperor over decades, and now he had to compete with his brother for his father's attention. All of the Primarchs were found one by one, and all given their legions and began to conquer the galaxy and to exterminate the Xenos empires like the Rangdeng and Harud. With every human planet that was found and blended into the Imperium, the forces and technology of the Imperium grew, with the Emperor leading his people to a new golden age for humanity. You may be wondering how the Emperor runs the Imperium, and the thing is, he runs the military side of it, and the administration side is run by Malcador. As his sons were found one by one, he stepped back a bit during this because he knew his sons could conquer the rest of the galaxy. But one campaign required his attention because it could cause severe damage to the Imperium, and this was against the Orc-Wa and their war boss, Urlak-Urg. This battle was on the desert planet called Ullanor, where a massive war fleet of Lunar Wolves and other legions alongside the Emperor, Horus, Guilliman, and Jagatai Khan, and a battle fleet of Imperial Guard and some Titan legions. The fight between Horus and the Emperor against the war boss was so fierce that they almost died fighting this strong beast, but they were able to kill Urlak and completely eradicate his Wa. After this war, the Emperor realized that he needed to step away from the Crusade to work on his most important project, which was the webway project, because he doesn't want humanity to use the warp to travel far distances. So, he gave the mantle of War Master to his favorite son, who fought alongside him the longest and killed the last biggest threat to the Imperium during the Great Crusade, to Horus Lupercal. The ceremony was huge. Entire legions, regiments of Imperial Guard and Titan legions, and even some of the Primarchs arrived and stood to see that the first found son of the Emperor would become War Master. After the triumph at Ullanor, the Emperor returned to Terra with Dorn and his legion to build a throne world capable of being defended and being beautiful. He chose the 7th Legion and their Primarch as the Praetorians of Terra. As Horus was finishing up conquering and exterminating any threats to the Imperium and bringing lost human colonies back into the light, the Emperor was keeping the webway project secret from the Imperium. One of the possible reasons why he kept it secret was that if he had it out in the open, then the Navigators and eventually the Astropaths would rebel. I think he needed the webway as a step to make humanity a psychic race, kinda like the Eldar, but not as powerful as them. But an event that would come up which would require the Emperor's advice and wisdom, and it would be named the Council of Nicaea. This debate was about the uses of psychic powers in the Imperium, and it divided the Primarchs. Those who supported the use of psychic powers were Magnus, Sanguinius, and the Khan, because they had used the power of the Librarians and knew the importance of them. The opposite side consisted of Mortarion, the Pale King, and the Wolf King, Leman Russ, but Leman was in the shadows, making sure that everything went smoothly. The Emperor wasn't against it, but he wasn't for it, and he allowed the use of the Librarians as an experiment. At the end, he decreed after it that the use of psychic powers other than the Navigators and Astropaths would be banned, and any use of them would result in the death of those who would break his law. Even the legions weren't safe from his judgment. After he returned to Terra to continue his secret project, and as time went on, he realized that he needed to hurry, because he didn't want the Eyes of Chaos to find his secrets, but this would eventually fail. Horus became injured after fighting a chaos-corrupted Imperial general, and his soul was pushed into the warp with Erebus as the architect of Horus's fall into the dark hands of the Chaos Gods. Magnus sensed this, and he used his power, fueled by the sacrifice of hundreds of slaves, to attempt to save Horus, but he failed, and tried to warn the Emperor, which broke the wards in the Imperial dungeon. This was all a part of the Changer Ways plan, and from this a demonic incursion happened, and the Emperor looked at his son, the Crimson King, with disappointment. After Magnus realized what he did, the Emperor ordered Leman and his entire legion, with the assistance of a contingent of Custodes and Sisters of Silence, led by Valdor, to bring Magnus in chains to Terra. Now, the Emperor didn't know that Horus was corrupted, as he was focusing on holding the demons back, and that's what he did. He led his Custodes against the Neverborn. As the Emperor was dealing with the damage Magnus had dealt to his project, he received more bad news, and it was from Dorn, who said that Horus was corrupted, and he convinced 3 other legions to betray the Emperor and the Imperium. Saddened by this, the Emperor sent 7 legions to bring the traitors to him in chains. But this would fail because 4 out of the 7 legions he sent were already traitors, and the 3 loyalist legions, which were the Raven Guard, Salamanders, and the Iron Hands, were heavily damaged by the traitors, and the survivors barely escaped. While the Emperor had to deal with holding the wards together to prevent the demons in the webway from overrunning Terra, while the Custodes, Sisters of Silence, fought them as well. He left the fighting and the traitors to Malcador and Rogal Dorn, but he did make an exception for when Corax came to Terra with his shattered and battered legion, and he gave him the Primarch and Gene Seed plan to Corax so he could rebuild the 19th. Then the Emperor returned his effort to holding the demons back. He held them back for 5 years before he showed signs of physical fatigue, and he sensed the birth of the demon Dracnian, a very powerful demon, and he knew that the war on the webway was reaching its climax, and he needed to act. So he ordered the Sisters of Silence to gather 1,000 psychers and sacrifice them to the throne so he could get up and deal with Dracnian, and he fought the demon, giving a chance for his forces to retreat back to the throne world. To defeat the demon, the Emperor allowed it to stab him, and he transformed it into a sword, and shoved it into his custodies, Ra and Endymion, and ordered him to run deeper into the webway. After he left the webway, he sealed the gate to it, but he had to sit on the throne again to hold it closed, and he came to a realization that the Imperium was doomed either way, and even he didn't know how to save it from extinction. One thing the Emperor had to do when he held the webway door closed was keep an eye out for Vulcan, because he was on his way to Terra. He also had Vulcan fight a shard of Magnus in the webway, and he had to keep an eye out for his son so he could transport him back safely. Now he did this same task of sitting on the throne throughout the siege of Terra until Vulcan returned from destroying Magnus. Then, in the darkest hours close to the end of the siege, a tough choice had to be made. Malcador had to sit on the throne, but this would kill him, and as his old friend noticed that age was getting the better of Malcador, he was saddened that he had to make him do this, but Malcador accepted this and comforted his old friend one final time. As Malcador sat on the throne, his longtime friend said that Malcador shall be named Malcador the Hero, as he was saddened to see his friend suffer and die, and wanted to give him a proper honor, and had Vulcan stand nearby to take the throne just in case. The Emperor gave his orders to his sons, but Sanguinius refused his father's order to stay on Terra, and refused the title of War Master due to the dark history of it. He then confessed to his father of why he must go with his father and fight Horus, and wanted to go with to deny fate. His father agreed to his son coming to the fight, and he told him to gather his best warriors. The Emperor gathered his remaining sons, which are Sanguinius and Dorn, and some of their personal guard, and Valdor, as well as some remaining custodies, and they teleported onto Horus's flagship, but the warp powers separated them to different parts of the ship. While the Emperor was on the way to the bridge, he felt the power that Horus had, and he realized he needed to empower himself. So he drank from the warp, but it overwhelmed him, which made him become the Dark King, which is theorized to be the fifth Chaos God, and when the Emperor became like this for a while, he killed all the custodians around him. Even the demons and traitors ran from him, but thankfully, with the intervention from Leto, John Chromaticus, Garvia Loken, and Alanius Person, he was able to prevent himself from letting the Dark King take over completely. Now, the first person to reach the bridge first was Sanguinius, and he fought his brother and was brutalized and killed, but he did rip a hole in Horus's armor. Then, one of the darkest things happened during the Battle of the Vengeful Spirit was that the demons in the throne room hung Sanguinius' corpse so the Emperor could see his son's bloodied corpse. When the Emperor saw it, he realized that Horus was insane, and both beings fought, survived for a time, but he was being beaten by Horus. One of his arms was taken off, and he lost an eye, and his body was broken. But when one of the custodians that was with him came into the room on Horus's flagship, he was pulled apart by the power that he got from the Chaos Gods. So, with his entire psychic power, the Emperor used it to rip his son apart, and it was so powerful, Horus's soul was obliterated. But before he killed Horus, his first found son had a moment of clarity, and he realized the things he did, and he was horrified. The Emperor's body was found by Dorn, who was horrified to see his father in this state. He carried him back to Terra alongside the remaining strike force, including Valdor, and also took the body of Sanguinius. When Dorn walked into the throne room and put the Emperor on the golden throne, while Malcador's body and soul disintegrated. Before the Emperor went silent, he gave Dorn and Vulcan plans to fix the throne so that it would save him by turning it into an arcane life support system, and he still used it to keep the influence of Chaos Gods at bay on Terra, and he kept the light of the Astronomicon on. And with his time coming to an end, the Emperor gave his last instructions to his generals and advisors before his body went into a state of stasis for the next 10,000 years, but his mind was still active, offering aid as time went on. The sacrifice of 1,000 psychers is still being used to this day, with the black ships of the Silent Sisterhood gathering them. As the Emperor was in a state between life and death, he would see the decay of the dream he had for the Imperium. It is the 41st millennium. For more than 100 centuries, the Emperor has sat immobile on the golden throne of Earth. He is the master of mankind by the will of the gods, and master of a million worlds by the might of his inexhaustible armies. He is a rotting carcass, writhing invisibly with power from the dark age of technology. He is the carrion lord of the Imperium, from whom 1,000 souls are sacrificed every day, so that he may never truly die. Yet, and even in his deathless state, the Emperor continues his eternal vigilance. Mighty battle fleets cross the demon-infested miasma of the warp, the only route between distant stars, their way lit by the Astronomicon, the psychic manifestation of the Emperor's will. Vast armies give battle in his name on uncounted worlds. Greatest amongst his soldiers are the Adeptus Astartes, the Space Marines, bioengineered super warriors. Their comrades in arms are Legion, the Imperial Guard and countless planetary defense forces, the ever-vigilant Inquisition, and the tech priests of the Adeptus Mechanicus, to only name a few. But for all their multitudes, they are barely enough to hold off the ever-present threat from aliens, heretics, mutants, and worse. To be a man in such times is to be one amongst untold billions. It is to live in the cruelest and most bloody regime imaginable. These are the tales of those times. Forget the power of technology and science, for so much have been forgotten, never to be relearned. Forget the promise of progress and understanding, for in the grim dark future, there is only war. There is no peace among the stars, only an eternity of carnage and slaughter, and the laughter of thirsting gods. Now, I thank you guys for watching the video to the end if you have gotten this far, and if you enjoyed it, hit the like button and share it with someone who would like this content. If you are new and would like to see more content, hit the subscribe button to be notified for when a new video comes out. I thank you guys for watching, and I hope you have a good day. This is Wisdom of Warhammer, signing off.